Have you ever thought about how one person's betrayal could change the entire course of history? What if Voldemort's rise to power depended not on his own abilities, but on the cowardice of a single wizard? In today's video, you will find out why Peter Pettigrew from Harry Potter became a traitor and what happened to him. Few characters in Harry Potter are as despised as Peter Pettigrew. Unlike other villains who at least had their reasons, however twisted, for choosing the dark side, Peter was different. He started as a friend, as one of the good guys, yet betrayed everyone who trusted him. And his betrayal led to the greatest tragedy of the wizarding world. From the moment he stepped into Hogwarts, something felt off. Gryffindor was the house of bravery, yet Peter was neither brave nor strong. He was weak, always clinging to those more powerful than him. That's how he became part of the Marauders, James Potter, Sirius Black, and Remus Lupin. But was he ever really one of them? James was indifferent to Peter, treating him like a harmless tag-along. Sirius, however, despised him. He mocked him, belittled him, and never saw him as an equal. Peter smiled, laughed along, but deep inside resentment was growing. Resentment that would one day lead to the ultimate betrayal. When Voldemort's war began, the Marauders stood against him. At first, so did Peter, but deep down he had always craved power. And who could offer more power than the Dark Lord himself? Perhaps it wasn't just fear that made him switch sides. Perhaps after years of being the weakling, Peter finally saw a chance to matter. To prove his loyalty to Voldemort, he did the unthinkable. He became the secret keeper for the Potters' hiding place. Instead of protecting them, he led the Dark Lord straight to them. And just like that, James and Lily Potter were gone. But Peter wasn't finished yet. When Sirius confronted him, he played his final trick, framing Sirius for the betrayal. In a single moment, he killed 12 innocent people, faked his own death, and left Sirius to rot in Azkaban, the perfect crime. For 12 years, he lived in hiding as a rat. Not just figuratively, literally. Disguised as Ron Weasley's pet, he avoided capture, unnoticed and forgotten. But fate had other plans. A single photograph in a newspaper gave him away. Sirius, locked in Azkaban, saw the image and knew the truth. Sirius escaped. He found Peter. And in a tense confrontation, the truth was finally revealed. Yet, in a twist of irony, it was Harry Potter who spared Peter's life. A decision that would later cost the wizarding world dearly. Peter fled once again, but this time he had only one place left to go. He sought out his old master, Voldemort. Weak and powerless, the Dark Lord needed Peter just as much as Peter needed him. Together they began the dark ritual that would bring Voldemort back. Peter paid a heavy price for his loyalty. He sacrificed his own hand in the resurrection ritual, earning a new, magical silver one from Voldemort. But loyalty meant nothing to the Dark Lord. Peter was no longer useful. He became nothing more than a servant, given only the most degrading tasks. His final moments were as pathetic as the life he had lived. When he hesitated to kill Harry just for a second, his own enchanted hand, gifted by Voldemort, turned against him. It strangled him where he stood, punishing him for his moment of weakness. Peter Pettigrew died the way he had lived, powerless and alone. In the movies, this moment was erased, but in the books, it was the perfect ending for a man whose betrayals shaped the fate of the wizarding world. Peter Pettigrew in Gryffindor, it seems like a mistake. Gryffindor is for the brave, the noble, the daring. Yet Peter was none of these things. He was weak, he was cowardly, and he betrayed his closest friends. Why then did the Sorting Hat place him in the House of Heroes? Did it see something in him that no one else did? The Sorting Hat rarely makes mistakes. It saw something in Peter that justified placing him among the likes of James Potter, Sirius Black and Remus Lupin. But what was it? Gryffindor is known for courage, but courage takes many forms. Perhaps Peter's bravery wasn't the kind that led to heroic sacrifices. Perhaps it was something quieter, something more desperate. He wasn't strong like James. He wasn't charismatic like Sirius. He wasn't intelligent like Remus, but he wanted to belong. He was willing to do anything to keep his place in their group. And that takes a kind of courage too, a dangerous one, the willingness to do whatever it takes to survive, to stay in favor, to never be left behind. Even as a boy, Peter showed this trait. He followed James and Sirius everywhere, laughing at their jokes, joining in on their pranks. He learned to be an animagus just to stay close to them, despite how difficult the magic was. It took them 3 years to master it, but he never gave up. That kind of determination, some might call it bravery. Dumbledore once said, Wilkie, it takes a great deal of bravery to stand up to our enemies, but just as much to stand up to our friends. But Peter never stood up to anyone. He was never strong enough. He followed, he obeyed, he adapted, and in the end he turned against the very people who had once protected him. His greatest act of bravery? Betrayal. It's easy to stay loyal when there's no danger. But when the Dark Lord himself is watching, when the choice is between life and death, that's when true character is revealed. Peter chose survival. He chose power, and that choice required a twisted, self-serving kind of courage. Even after Voldemort's fall, Peter kept running. He spent 12 years as a rat, hiding in plain sight. That, too, takes nerve, constant fear, constant vigilance. He lived with the Weasleys, knowing that if anyone discovered his secret, he would die. Every single day he balanced on the edge of exposure. When he finally met Sirius and Remus again, he was cornered. He knew his life was in their hands, but once again he chose to act. He manipulated Harry's compassion, begging for mercy. He knew how to play the role of the helpless, the pathetic. And it worked. Harry spared him. A true coward would have been frozen in fear. But Peter always acted when it mattered most. Even at the very end, his courage failed him. When Voldemort's magic hand strangled him for hesitating, it wasn't fear that killed him. It was the small, buried part of him that still had a shred of loyalty, a piece of the Gryffindor boy he once was. He hesitated, and it cost him everything. Peter Pettigrew was never the noble kind of brave. But bravery doesn't always mean honor. Sometimes it means knowing when to switch sides, knowing when to bow, knowing when to betray. The Sorting Hat saw that in him. It saw his desperate, survivalist courage, and that, in its own way, was enough.